Hey guys, thank you so much for following me. Thank you so much for your questions and joining in my lives. And thank you for scheduling readings with me. You guys are amazing. And you have been part of this journey. My name's Ashley Izdebski. I am Sally Parker of Sally Parker Tarot. And I want to take a minute and talk about something very real to do with me on a personal level. And that is my battle with anxiety, my journey from start until where I'm at now. I'm not going to say finished because personally, I don't think it's something that can ever have flare ups, heightened periods throughout their life where it's really, really bad. And there are others where it's lifelong. Okay. And there are others who have it just here and there. For me, it's been for the last few years. And up until recently, the last 2 years were really bad for me. The last year was at its peak. And I didn't think it was possible that I would find a solution for this. I used to be the type of person that was down for anything. From as far back as I could remember, somebody would say, do you want to go here? Do you want to go to this concert? Do you want to go to this party? Do you want to go to this event? I was there for it. I was there for all of it. I was there for all of it, and I didn't think twice, not ever, not once. And I feel like it was in my mid-30s when I started to develop symptoms of anxiety, but they weren't heightened enough or as often enough for me to acknowledge as something serious or as something that could develop. Serious. It was 2021. It was October of 2021. And I was driving my car to a doctor's appointment, a regular physical doctor's appointment. There was no other reason for this appointment other than a biannual checkup. En route to this appointment, I had the option of going onto the 401. If you're not Canadian, that's taking the on-ramp onto a major freeway, okay? And I decided, something said to me, no, don't do that. So I stayed on the side roads, and I was driving past my hometown grocery store when I started to become numb. I couldn't feel anything. And I had my dog in the car beside me. Charlie was wearing his doggy seatbelt. Yes, they do exist. If you don't have one, get yourself one for your pup. Because what happened next, I could not have predicted. And as it was happening, I thought I was dying, because being a predominantly healthy individual my entire life, I could never have prepared for what I was about to experience. I was driving and I started to have a seizure. But the first thing that happened was I lost consciousness. I remember driving, and the only way I can describe the onset of a seizure is if you are familiar with working out. So say you're using an exercise bike, you switch gear. You increase the level from where you're at into something harder. And you feel that. You feel that you have to push down, and it's hard. And sometimes you just can't, right? So then you bring it back down. So when you're having a seizure, for me, the first thing I felt was that I couldn't move my limbs. It was like I was pushing and nothing was happening. And I couldn't drive my car anymore. I lost complete control. My entire body went numb, and the first thing I thought was that I was dying. I ended up waking up in a ditch in front of my small town grocery store. I was very confused. Charlie was sitting next to me, my pup, and he was pawing at me. He was fine. Our airbags went off. I was fine, except that I was hit in the head with the airbag. I'm not sure, like I might have had like a swollen face of some kind, but nothing major. Other than that, I was very confused, and that's because I was coming out of a seizure. And I remember looking over my shoulder, and there was a minivan that was upside down. And the first thing I thought was, oh, they must have been texting and driving, and they hit me. I had, at that time, no recollection of how this happened. I couldn't remember what I'm telling you now. And my car was written off. It was a wreck. I was rushed to the hospital. Somebody on site was actually a registered nurse, and she lived nearby. She took my dog Charlie. We exchanged numbers. And I went to the hospital where they confirmed that I had had a seizure. And they took away my driver's license because that's what they have to do when somebody has a seizure. And I said, take it. I honestly, at that point, I went from loving driving, loving it, to never wanting to drive again. And the reason for that is because I couldn't imagine getting into another wreck and nobody surviving, or somebody being seriously injured. I didn't want to be responsible for that. So I thought the responsible thing was to definitely take away my driver's license at that point. They could not confirm what caused the seizures. I went through extensive testing the months to follow, and they couldn't pin it down. They did not put me on medication right away either. So that was fine. It was scary knowing that it had happened, but it was a relief knowing that a couple of months had gone by and it hadn't happened again, and that I would be able to get my driver's license back within a year. So I was looking forward. And so here I am with Charlie, my love of my life. He's been through so much with me. My first seizure, we've been in a car accident together, and he has witnessed me have seizures since the very first time. But he's still here and faithful and always at my side, and misses me when I can't be at his, but that's a rarity. Anyways, so as I was saying, they didn't put me on medication right away, and I was looking forward to getting my driver's license, and it wasn't until February of 2022. I was coming back from a listing appointment. My mortgage broker at the time was driving me, and so he's like, yeah, I'll take you out there, meet them, good networking for him too if they're looking for a mortgage. And on the way home, I looked at him and I said, I'm starting to not feel very well. And next thing he knew is I was passing out and having another seizure, my second seizure, right there in my mortgage broker's vehicle. Extremely embarrassing, but again, safe. He wanted to take me to the hospital. I said, no, I don't want to go through that. Just take me home, take me back to my condo. And he did. He stayed there until my mom arrived. When she arrived, so we were getting ready to leave so she could bring me back to their place for a couple of days. And I remember we got my stuff packed up. We got Charlie packed up. And we were in the elevator heading down to the lobby. I stepped out of the elevator. I looked at her and I said, oh, it's going to happen again. And she had no time to save. I fell face first, hard, flat on my face, right there in the lobby on the hard terrazzo floor, and I split my forehead open. I was rushed to the hospital again, this time more serious condition than I was the first time. Had an amazing medical team. I was severely concussed from that, to the point that I was there for a good 9 hours, and it went by like that for me just because I was so severely concussed. And I remember the doctor taking really good care of me, and the nurses too, but the doctor was telling me about his daughter's birthday party, because he was telling me about things just to take my mind off of what had happened, and I didn't know how bad my face looked at the time and the damage that was done. And he look at this guy just falling asleep. And he was telling me about his daughter's birthday party, and when he went to give me stitches, because I have this lightning bolt scar down the middle of my forehead, when he went to give me stitches for that, I looked at him and I said, can you please pretend that you are stitching your daughter's forehead? Because this is my face. And he completely understood, and he did a fantastic job. From that point on, I did not go back to my condo for at least a month. I was on my parents' couch, or in my old bedroom at my parents' house, resting. And everyone in my condo, for the most part, I received this huge basket of flowers from the people in my condo. They'd written out a nice card, and it was really, really sweet, and so much concern and love. And it was that incident where they immediately put me on medication. So I'm on levetiracetam, Keppra, twice daily, 500 milligrams, 12 hours apart. And I've been doing that. And I've only ever had one seizure since. And that is because I couldn't sleep 1 week and I started taking melatonin. And the melatonin interfered with my medication. And when that happens, if something interferes with my medication, it'll bring on a seizure. So it's also a type of medication that I can't even just randomly go off of. It's something that my body would have to be gradually taken off of. So anyways, that aside, I haven't had any scary incidences since. But so my last seizure was October 2023. And knock on wood, that will be my last. But what it did was played with my anxiety. And I worry about having seizures in public places. It's taken away my confidence to just be able to walk into a crowded room, walk through a grocery store. You get the idea, right? My independence completely gone. And yes, you know what? I do have my driver's license back. They gave that back to me. But I have not driven since. I won't. I don't think it is the responsible thing to do until more time goes by or I find the confidence to do so, which at this point I'm not in any rush because like I said, I would be remiss if I was feeling good and then all of a sudden I found myself in a situation where I couldn't control what was about to happen and got myself into a serious accident, okay? So I'm very responsible about it. However, it's brought on something new, and that is severe heightened anxiety. But because of my seizure disorder and the medication that I take for it, I also cannot take anxiety medications. So it's taken a lot of personal strength, a lot of research, lifestyle changes, to find ways to combat anxiety when I'm feeling it. And for a while, I was waking up with it and I was going to bed with it. I was living with it all day long. I had a hard time walking my dogs down the street. Let alone going to a grocery store. I'd have major panic attacks. I'm a realtor as well. So going to real estate appointments became a struggle as well. I was working with a colleague, but that relationship dissolved after some time. And I had to find ways to go about it, working on my own and also trusting and believing in myself that I was feeling okay to be alone with virtually complete strangers at times. What the disappointing thing is, like I used to be able to do it without batting an eyelash. And then it got to a point where that was just arduous. It was tiring. I didn't have I no longer had the independence that came along with the lifestyle of being a realtor. So I started to do a lot of research on meditation, and I started to go online and listen to other people talk about their journey with anxiety. And I started to do research on seizures, and I started to look into different causes of seizures. And I don't want to get into that because this video isn't about seizures specifically. I'm not going to get into my research on the seizure side of things, but I will talk about. Over the last year, my anxiety increased in ways that I thought I was going crazy. I felt that I was the only person experiencing what I was experiencing. I had a hard time waiting in lineups in stores. I had a hard time waiting in drive-thrus as a passenger. I had a hard time walking through a grocery store, basically not feeling safe anywhere unless I was on my property somewhere. And I didn't like that. I know that is not a healthy. I wanted to find a way to not only combat this, but deal with it, because the anxiety would lead to an increased level of fear that I would find myself disassociating in social situations, and then I would have full-on panic attacks. And because I had never had a panic attack before, I'd always just gone from zero to a seizure. Whenever I started to experience a panic attack, I would start to panic even more that it was the onset of a seizure. So that was fun. But after my first panic attack, where I was hosting my office Christmas parade. I went to the back of the office and I sat at my desk, and for about 8 minutes I sat there just taking deep breaths. I was unable to talk, but also nobody knew what I was going through. I just kind of snuck off. And I remembered Coach Michael 1. You can find him here on TikTok. And his strategies. If you're familiar with him, great. If not, look him up. He has all types of mechanisms where you can sit with him for 1 to 2 to 3 minutes. He does different videos helping you work your way through moments of anxiousness. And because I'd watched a number of his videos up until that point, he was the first one that I could think of. And I visualized his face and heard his voice and took deep breaths and started to feel like I was gaining control again. And this is all me having to rein it in a busy environment on my own without medication. And it worked. It was scary. It took a lot of energy out of me. When these things happen, I get really thirsty very quickly because it just takes so much out of me. It's a chemical reaction within my body, a huge rush of adrenaline, and then your body having to work really hard to bring yourself into focus. But I did, and I was really proud of myself. And so, Coach Michael 1 here on TikTok, thank you very much. I continue to follow you and watch your videos and also share them religiously with people. So it was later on. So the end of December, I think, this last December 2024 or the beginning of January 2025, it's in my algorithm, I'll get a lot of videos about people coping with anxiety and things like that. And I saw one, there was this individual, and forgive me, I can't remember their name, but this is the book that they were talking about, Hope and Help for Your Nerves by Dr. Claire Weeks. Hope and Help for Your Nerves by Dr. Claire Weeks. It is the Bible to cure your anxiety. If you would have told me a year ago that reading a book would be the ultimate cure that I needed to get a grip when it comes to anxiety, I would have laughed in your face. But I was at my absolute wit's end, and the way the person in their TikTok was describing this book and their symptoms, it was exactly what I was dealing with. And so immediately I thought, okay, I'm not losing my mind. There are other people out there experiencing exactly what I am. And there's a book written about it. There's a doctor who specialized in this, and thank goodness she wrote this beautiful book, and it covers a variety of different levels of anxiety. Some of them I don't experience. But I am telling you, there is at least one chapter, if not a few chapters, or maybe all the chapters in this book that you will find beneficial if you suffer from anxiety the way that I do, and so many others do. And I want to underscore that last sentence. So many others do share these symptoms. You're not going crazy. You can see that it is a well-read book. And I've only had it for a few months, but I will continue to recommend it and promote it. I truly do believe that it saved my quality of life. I don't want to say it saved my life because I was never and will never go to that extreme, but I was desperate for an answer. I knew that there was one. I knew that I would find one. And when I read this book, I immediately felt that I wasn't alone. And also a coping mechanism that made sense and I was able to implement in all kinds of scenarios. If I was going through a drive-through and beginning to have a panic attack, I would follow the method in this book and I would get through it, just float through it. Dr. Claire Weeks writes about anxiety and effective coping mechanisms. It's on Amazon for $27 Canadian, okay? The best purchase you will make if you suffer from anxiety. I don't get anything by promoting this book other than the peace of mind that I am possibly helping other people by sharing. Easier than others. But I don't turn around anymore. And that's the huge difference. Whereas before I read this book, the minute I started to feel like it was going to be an off day where I wouldn't be able to make it through the store, I would have turned around and walked out. Now I just recall the coping mechanisms that Claire Weeks talks about in this book. Take a deep breath, take as many as I need, and proceed to move forward. And then, and you have to be able to say no to people and scenarios, but also say yes to things as well. And here's a prime example. So if you follow me anywhere on social media, you will know that recently I was invited to go hang out at the shopping channel. However, leading up to that, I had a lot of anxiety. You would think that the invitation was somebody inviting me to, that I was accepting an invitation to hop into a vehicle with somebody and drive off a cliff into the Grand Canyon. Like, I was staring this invitation down like something that was not only just amazing, but also the scariest thing imaginable today for me. But what a great opportunity. I took it as a sign to accept as a personal challenge, but I didn't want to do it at the risk of embarrassing myself or anybody else in that environment. The Shopping Channel Toronto is a TV studio, and the person who invited me is a good friend of mine. She is a longtime model of the channel, and I wanted to represent myself very well. So, of course, because I don't drive, and that's fine, I just laugh it off these days. I'm like, I'm a diva. People just drive me anywhere. You know what? You work with things. Because again, I do have my license back. I just choose not to drive. Maybe I will one day. So I reached out to Brad and I said, hey, here's this opportunity. And he and my friend Shona actually went to high school together many years ago. They know each other. That's so funny. It's such a small world because I met Brad first and then I met Shona separately. And I was telling Brad, hey, I met this amazing woman. And this is her name. This is where she works. He's like, oh, Shona. Yeah, I went to high school with her. I mean, 6 degrees of separation. He said, absolutely, you have to do that. I said, will you take me? He said, of course. And he was looking forward to it, reconnecting with Shona. She was excited to see him again. I was just, the officiant of this, trying to take the pressure off of myself, but there really wasn't any pressure. I was invited to go hang out with her for work for the day. She had things to do. Everybody else there had things to do. But again, I was worried about being immersed in a busy, bright, social environment. Huge task for me. However, I knew I was safe going in. Brad was driving me. Brad was going to be at my side the entire time. He knows about. And so I went and stayed over at his place. The next morning I woke up. He went downstairs to make breakfast and I started to go downstairs and my mind just started to go. And I was thinking about all of the what ifs. And I had to stop myself from going down the stairs because I could feel myself having a panic attack. I walked right up the stairs, climbed into bed, and got under the covers for real. And I called his name once. He said yes, and I didn't say anything back because I didn't know what to say. And so he came right up the stairs and he's like, what? And because he also knows, I've told him before, I was like, if I ever call your name and whatever, like, just don't freak out, don't do anything. He's very, very good in these scenarios. That's the first time that he's ever experienced a heightened anxiety. No, that's actually not the first time that he's experienced a heightened. There was another time at a drive-thru. But anyways, this time around, so this was the biggest panic attack that he has seen me witness, but it was not as severe as the one that I had back at the Christmas parade. I've gotten better at reining it in, managing the scenarios. And I was still able to speak. I was still able to move. I knew what I could and could not do in that moment. And I got up and I just went to the bathroom and filled a glass of water and drank it because I was really thirsty. And I came back to bed and I said, I'm hungry, I need to eat, my blood sugar's off. He went downstairs, got breakfast, brought it up, and I was eating like a ravished animal because I was so shaky, but I was getting food into my system and that was the main thing. And I said, I'm so nervous about going to the studio today. I don't know what to expect. I don't know who, what, when, where, any. And he's like, you are going to be fine. He was saying all the right things and he was saying all the things that were true. And I could have called Shona and said, I don't want to come. I could have canceled, but I have integrity and I owed it to myself. Also, she had gone through great lengths to set this up, and so I wasn't going to disappoint her. And as a result, this was the ultimate test for me. I couldn't let her down, and I knew if I backed out, I would have been very disappointed in myself. What's the worst that could happen? I pass out and Brad is there to catch me. So what? So deep breath. Within an hour, I started to come back around. And the normal morning routine, I mean, I was very breathy. I was shaky, but I was moving and going about my morning routine in such a way that first of all, I was very confused. And I remember sitting at one point and becoming so overwhelmed with what was planned for the day ahead, I couldn't think straight, and that started to scare me. So I went back downstairs because now I could move around, and I told Brad this, and he's like, that's fine. He's like, your body's coming into this, like you're processing these things. And I said, I'm gonna go work out now, I think. He's okay. So I got my workout shoes, got my gear, and then he came upstairs with me just because he has an exercise bike, so he had to adjust the seat. And so I had gone from the hour prior being in bed, unable to move but eating, to now getting onto an exercise bike, having eaten, had a tea, working through it, drinking water, and I was just like, just do your 15K on this bike. And I did, and I made a couple of phone calls, was messaging a couple of clients, just trying to get my brain to do normal things, exercising, going through the normal workout routine that I would do. And I did it. I said to Brad, I think I'm only going to do 10K today, but at least it's something. He said, sure. I did a full 15. When I got to the shopping channel, everybody there was so warm and so welcoming. It wasn't the lion's den that I thought I was being invited to, and it never was. It was 10 times better. And what a breakthrough. It was lovely having the opportunity to go to the shopping channel. The people I met are wonderful and welcoming, and they had no idea that I was having major anxiety about it earlier in the day until I told them, and they laughed and they're like, why would you do that? I'm like, I don't know. Like, why do we create these scenarios? Why do we dwell so much on the what ifs? Okay, and so long story short, Brad and I were driving home, and I said, that was the best exposure therapy I could have ever asked for. If I could walk into a TV studio and tour around sets and hang out in a brightly lit makeup room surrounded by, dozens of people all at once and a few high profile famous people and not have a panic attack or anything whatsoever, I'm going to be fine. I can absolutely walk through a grocery store. I was so excited. I was so happy. And I thought, that's what we need to do. We need to push ourselves through sometimes. So in closing, what I want to say is when dealing with anxiety, don't say no to invitations because you are afraid of what your anxiety is going to do to you in those scenarios. Don't go alone if you feel like you can't go alone. I definitely could not have gone by myself. One, I wouldn't have been able to drive. Two, it was nice to have Brad there at my side. Don't go alone if you feel like you don't want to go alone. If having somebody at your side is what it takes to get out the door and go to an event, then I bet you have a friend or family member who would be more than willing to go with you. Okay, so just because you have anxiety doesn't mean that you have to go alone somewhere. It also doesn't mean that you have to stay home. So rely on your friends and family. And you'll be so proud of yourself once you do and you go and you get through it. It is an amazing milestone. On the drive home, we found ourselves stuck in traffic, and I was just breathing easy. I'm like, I just can't wait to get home. I want to eat a cheeseburger, because knowing I was going to the shopping channel, I was dieting for like 3 weeks prior to and working out. That's silly. But anyways, I was like, I just can't wait to eat a cheeseburger from Wendy's. That's all I wanted to. And I have not had a cheeseburger from Wendy's in over 2.5 years. Like, my diet is very, very, very healthy. But I did not want to be healthy. I was looking forward to this cheeseburger and fries from Wendy's. Okay. So anyways, I didn't have anxiety about sitting in traffic. I was like, Brad, if I can do that, I can do anything. He was, yeah, you can. I was like, if I can walk through a TV studio, I can absolutely walk through a grocery store of any kind. I can do this. And that is why earlier in the day I knew it was important, because I was hoping that my fears would be wrong, and they were, and that I would come out the other side happy that I did it. I came out more than happy than I could have ever imagined. So with the help of Claire Weeks's Hope and Help for Your Nerves, and Coach Michael 1 here on TikTok, and many other TikTokers talking about their anxiety, I'm hoping that I can encourage and inspire other people here who are dealing with anxiety, or have friends or family members who are dealing with anxiety, because I never thought that I'd be able to do what I did on Thursday, which was go to the studio. If you would have asked me back in November, I would have said no. If I had to go that November, I wouldn't have done it. I knew I had the invitation then. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. But I did. I absolutely did. And what I think for me, and I can't speak for everybody, I'm not a medical professional, I think my brain needs to start recognizing safe scenarios as safe scenarios, and stop looking at every environment and every scenario like it's a scary situation. So I'm trying to reprogram my brain to being able to process an environment for what it is without being confused and being unable to determine what it actually is, and immediately sending me into a fight or flight mode. And sometimes you got to push your own boundaries to do it, okay? But again, if you don't feel safe doing it on your own, call up a friend, call up a family member. Find the right one for the right scenario, because I have friends and I have family members that are better for other scenarios than others, okay? Brad is consistent. He'd be great for any scenario in my life. Certain family members, parents, they're very protective. So you might not necessarily want them in every scenario, because it just increases your anxiety, because, that's a thing. Certain friends, whatever, just different energies. Find your person, and then find your people. And find your people and find your way through. I promise you, it gets so much better. It gets so much better. And will I have moments again in the future? Yes. So long as I'm alive, I'm going to experience a wide range of emotions. We all will. But I feel like I have a variety of options and a great toolbox of resources to work with. So if you struggle with anxiety as well, I want you to know that there's research out there. Two simple things. Coach Michael 1 here on TikTok, and this book. Okay? The rest is up to you. And this is coming from a girl who has done it with no anxiety meds. I have had to figure it out all on my own. And also a lot of meditation. Okay? Getting the right amount of sleep, drinking the right amount of water, diet and exercise. Big changes, okay? Big changes. You do everything you can. Diet, exercise, find your person, find your people, and find your way through. Get your hands on this book. Follow Coach Michael here on TikTok. And if you ever have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm not a medical professional. Consult your doctor, of course. But this is the bare bones coming from a girl, like I said, who cannot be on anxiety meds. So if I can do it, you all can do it. Okay? All right. Thank you. And best of luck to you. And I'm always here. Okay. Talk to you soon. Bye.